Juniper keeps a bunch of config backups, but how do we use them? In this video, we're looking at how to roll back our changes and restore backups. The commit model is probably my favorite Junos feature, but we've only seen half of its power so far. There's an extra feature called commit confirmed, which really gives Junos an extra edge. Imagine that you're working on a router at a remote office. If you make a mistake, you might lose access to the router. Maybe you change an IP, you cause a routing loop, or something like that. With another vendor, we might need to schedule a restart before we begin, call someone on site and get them to restart the router, or maybe even travel out there ourselves. In any case, it's all disruptive. This is not so with Junos. Junos has a fantastic commit confirmed feature. If we run this command, our changes will be committed, and a 10-minute timer will start. We can use a different time if we wish. If we don't confirm that these changes are good, Junos automatically rolls back our changes. This is a quick way to automatically recover if we give Junos bad config. In our example, we waited too long and our changes rolled back. Let's make those changes again and commit them. If we're happy with our changes this time, we can run another commit to confirm they are good. And that's just the first level of rollback that's available to us. Before we look at the next options, let's take a quick look at how Junos handles config file backups. Every time we commit a change, a copy of the config is compressed and stored in the /config directory. We can see the contents of this directory, or any other for that matter, with the file list command. Optionally, you can add the detail keyword to get a Linux-like output. See the file Juniper.conf.gz? This is the active configuration file. Also notice additional files named with 1, 2, 3, and so on. These are backups of previous active configuration files. When we commit changes, we are moving the candidate config to the active config. While this is being done, Junos rotates these files. Juniper.conf.gz becomes Juniper.conf1.gz, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, and so on. The files we see here are the most recent files, so they're kept on fast storage. But that's not the end of it. There are additional backups in /var/db/config. The switch I'm using here is a low-end switch and doesn't have multiple disks, so this is just a pointer back to /config/db/config. A bigger device has fast and slow storage. This location would normally be on slow storage and would keep backups 4 through to 49. So we've got our bunch of backups. That's great, but what do we do with them? Let's imagine that we start making changes and then realize that we've made a mistake. We can't just exit as we get an error. We also don't want to commit our mistake. So what can we do? We can roll back the candidate config to the active config using rollback 0 or simply just rollback. This loads the active config, that is Juniper.conf.gz, as the candidate config. On occasion, we might make a mistake and then commit it. In this case, we can use a different rollback point, for example, rollback 1. Sometimes it can be tricky thinking about which number we want to roll back to. Think of it as the number of commits that you want to reverse. Take note though, that this just loads the backup into the candidate config. You will still need to commit this if you want it to take effect. Here's another helpful hint. If you're not sure which rollback point you want to use, you can compare it to the candidate to see the changes you've made since that point. One last thought around config backups. If we want, we can manually back up the candidate config to disk with the save command. This will create a file in the user's personal directory under /var/home. If we want to restore this file later, we can use the load or load override command. You can try this in the associated lab if you want to. And now it's quiz time again. I hope you're getting some value from these. I spent a lot of time putting them together. Let me know what you think in the comments section. What we've seen here is another fantastic reason to use Juniper devices. It's so easy to track configuration changes and roll back to them. Click the next video to see how we can create config templates using configuration groups.